No regrets at all. Masoud Barzani said he had no regrets about the independence referendum held in September last year. In an interview with the BBC, Barzani said, "I don't regret the vote of 3 million people. The referendum has been successful. We have around 2 million internally displaced persons or IDPs and refugees. That is why we're in this situation, not the referendum. So why should we call it a failure?" The referendum led to the loss of Kirkuk city and brought a rebuke from both regional and international powers.
From Mr. Barzani's point of view, he is one of the major political figures in Iraqi Kurdistan. He will always want to become an important person back in Kurdistan, so it is natural, in a sense, that he wants to find a way, a route back towards the leadership of the Iraqi Kurds. But I think what he senses is that with the way the US is trying to use the Kurds, both in Syria and Iraq, this is his moment to try to work with the US and to try to play that for his own advantage, whilst at the same time reaching out to those Kurds in Iraqi Kurdistan who still hanker for some kind of independence.
The Middle East Monitor has recently ran a headline that a Persian Gulf state seeks to reinstate Masoud Barzani. According to the Iraqi MP of State of Law Coalition, Jassim Mohammad Jafar al-Bayati, political powers and parliamentary blocs are involved in this project, and the aim is to persuade the Kurds, Sunnis and Shias to form the biggest parliamentary bloc after the elections in order to be tasked to form the government in return for giving Kirkuk and other disputed areas to Barzani. In September 2017, the Saudi State Minister for the Persian Gulf Affairs, Thamer al-Sabhan, visited Iraqi Kurdistan and met with Barzani to talk about the Kurdistan issue. Yet some argue that Barzani has his own axe to grind.
What he has seen and what other people around the region have seen is how the US has been supporting or trying to support the Kurds in Syria in order to try to get them to put pressure on the Syrian government. And the whole crisis that has recently erupted in Syria is part of a game, essentially, to try to create a Kurdish statelet, a semi-autonomous or even wholly autonomous area controlled by the Kurds in Syria. So Mr. Barzani and people like him are saying in Iraq, if that can happen to the Kurds in Syria, why can it not happen to the Kurds in Iraq? And if the United States is supporting the Kurds in Syria, perhaps we can get them to support us in the kind of ambitions that we have, both personal ambitions and nationalist ambitions as well.
The Iraqi Kurds have earned international sympathy for decades, particularly after their oppression under Iraqi dictator Saddam Hussein, and gained respect for their military ability in pushing back Daesh. However, they have legally no international right to secede, and from a policy standpoint, attempting to force the international community to recognize their independence puts them at odds with international goals for global security. In addition, counting on the US and Israel and turning their back on the regional friends have been two big missteps many analysts believe the Kurds have taken on their way to independence.
It is an extremely bad idea at this time. I think that the one thing that ought to be now completely clear is any attempt by the Kurds, either in Iraq or in Syria, to try to establish independence Kurdish governments will be vigorously opposed by the regional powers, all the more so as those regional powers will rightly see these Kurdish statelets as instruments of US and Israeli foreign policy. And I think that the Kurds must understand, or should understand, that the people that are egging them on to do these things, that are encouraging them to do these things, the US and Israel, are not ultimately their friends, and cannot be their protectors, whereas the people who they will alienate not only are far more powerful in regional terms, but possibly they are not entirely antagonistic to the Kurds.
Daesh has been defeated but not eradicated, and any change in the political structure of the region can provide a breeding ground for this terrorist group and the ilk to flourish again.